it is so difficult to achieve anything of substance by the time you're 30 that it's kind of psychotic that we've done the things that we've done.
Welcome to Midland Money Mindset, your weekly dose of inspiration and insights to ensure you enjoy each step of your journey. Whether you're saving for the future, planning your next big adventure, or simply looking to add more joy to your life, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive in.
Far too many people feel trapped in careers that drain their energy, longing for freedom and fulfillment. Jimmy Feeman knows that pain. He once told his dad he'd rather sell cookie dough on the side of the road than go back to a corporate job. Today, he's living the vision, co-founding NoBaked Cookie Dough, scaling it from a single scoop shop into a national brand. He's a Forbes 30 under 30 entrepreneur, Ironman, and passionate voice for startups. Jimmy proves that bold choices can turn passion into profit. On this episode of the Midland Money Mindset, he reveals how to build a brand, grow with grit, and find joy in the journey. I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Let's dive into the show. Well, Jimmy, welcome to the show. We have Jimmy Feeman, as I mentioned, co-founder of NoBaked Cookie Dough. Thanks for joining us today, Jimmy.
Thanks for having me on, Larry.
Yeah, so our listeners are enamored by the entrepreneurial journey, and a lot of times it takes that winding path. Nobody seems to have that straight up. So can you share with our listeners a little bit of your background? We'll spend a lot of time on what you're doing today with NoBaked, but just to give them a sense of who you are, your background, what led you up to the point of founding NoBaked?
Yeah, so I'd say that my wife, Megan, and I, who's my co-founder, we had a very interesting journey into entrepreneurship in the sense that we dove in very early on in our careers. So when we started NoBaked, we were 23. So there's not much background prior to that. But what there was, I think, is really important. So Megan grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, a family of small business owners, and where it was normal to discuss finances around the dinner table. It was normal to be transparent about the struggles and challenges that they were facing at work. It was like a true family business. My family also had like similar roots. And I think that exposure is really important early on in someone's life. And that sort of led me and Megan into like, after a really almost a year into us meeting, when we were still in college, we were like ideating businesses together. That's like something we liked to do. It's something we enjoyed. I was going to school for finance. I graduated and I began focusing on like, how do I make money? Like, how do I make the most money? And that's the thing that was really important to me, I think, for a lot of different reasons. But entrepreneurship, I would say, is a great way to make money and is also a terrible way to make money, depending on what you choose to do. So for me, I was working at a startup while I was still in college. It was actually a financial startup. We ran a small mutual fund. And then I went and worked at an insurance company. And a lot of the motivations behind me leaving that startup and going to that larger entity was like, hey, they'll pay more. And I have student loans and I have things to pay and all of these other things. And the interesting part is I'm really, really glad I got away from that early on. I'm really glad I never got the golden handcuffs, because I think for a lot of people like myself, they get stuck in a place where the golden handcuffs matter a lot. Like you're making a lot of money at a job. You've built a lifestyle around it. You have a lot of obligations. And at the time, my only obligations were my student loans. So I think as I think about our entrepreneurial journey and what led us to starting NoBaked, it was really all of those things leading up to it. And then the realization that we just did not like working for other people. I think that's something that you have to learn about yourself very early on. And if you don't learn that about yourself, then you're probably not trying to like find out, because everyone will know at some point, am I more comfortable being an employee or a contributor? Am I more uncomfortable being in front of the front of the charge? Do I want to be a solo entrepreneur? Do I not like having employees? These are all really good questions that I think people should be asking. And that's kind of what led us to starting NoBaked. We realized that we didn't like working for other people. I had this specific conversation with my dad in July of 2017, right before I quit my job. And I was like, I'd rather sell cookie dough on the side of the road, like out of a cooler, than go back to the office. It felt like what I was supposed to be doing. And looking back, I think it has a lot to do with the entrepreneurial mentality. And I don't necessarily has that much to do with the product for me. For my wife and for Megan, it had to do with the product. She was selling something that she loved to people that looked and felt like her as an audience. And then for me, it was more like, I got to get out of here. So that's sort of what led us into starting the company.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I said from a very early age, I am unemployable. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's a word I've used for probably the last 20 years. But I learned very early on that I was somebody who could not and did not make a good employee. So why put my managers, through that, and why put myself through it? And that's what kind of led me to my pivot. And it seems like you both had some really strong influences into the entrepreneurial side of things. And I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into what you just said about how you told your dad that you'd rather sell cookie dough on the side of the road than go back to that corporate job. And I think that there's a lot of people that think that at certain points of their careers, right? And many of them do nothing about it and they're kind of stuck, like you said, and it's an unfortunate thing. But at the same time, there are many people that just kind of put the stake in the ground and say, hey, I'm moving on from this and I'm going to figure it out. So, I mean, at that point, what was it about entrepreneurship that really spoke to you that said, hey, I'm not going to be one of those people that just says this. I'm going to actually do it?
I think for me, something happened mentally in my mind that early summer of 2017, where the walls that are around you, or maybe they're blinders that are up for most people, where you're not really looking at the world as the world. You're kind of the blinders on. I go to my job, I do my thing, I get my mortgage, I pay my credit card bill, I have my credit score, like I pay my bill. Everything is very simple, cut, dry. You go to school, go to college, get a job, you retire. And I was in this zombie state. And as the walls started to come down, and as I started to see like, well, you could drive for Uber at night and you could have this startup that you work on during the day. And you could go out in the world and you can make an impact. You could build a thing that you wanted to build. You could bring it to life. You start to realize like, I'm either going to be the guy that does that, or I'm going to be the guy that it amounts to nothing, not to nothing, but like, just quietly goes about their day silently without making an impact. And that bothered me. It doesn't bother some people. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I think what was wrong with it for me is I'm the type of guy that I say I'm going to do something and then I do it. And I've tried to live that thread through in many parts of my life. And trust me, I'm not always perfect about it. And that's something I strive for, though. I think that it's an ideal of value that I hold really dear. And so I've carried that through, whether it be me saying, hey, I'm going to do an Ironman and everyone telling me I'm crazy, which is funny. That happens to a lot of people when they say they're going to do something like that. Their friends, Their family are just like, oh, that's not a good idea. Same thing happens when you say you're going to start a business. They're like, oh, shouldn't quit your job. Like a bad idea. Right. And people want safety for you. But the interesting part about that is you really have to commit to being the type of person you want to be, because we only get one shot at this thing. Mm-hmm. You don't get multiple shots at life. You don't get to split test it. You don't get to find out what if. And so if you'd like to find out what if, you should just go do it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So, I mean, how did this all roll into becoming a food entrepreneur? I mean, it seems like you wanted to be an entrepreneur. You really didn't have this like desire to go food. It doesn't seem like it was a fan. How did you end up in that direction of all places?
So Megan and I were sitting at home one night. She wanted to quit her job. She said, well, I could sell my edible cookie dough. And I was like, yeah, it's a great idea. Like you should do that. We did math, like do the unit economics, figure out how it's going to work. Hey, I only have to sell 1,000 of these a month. And I could replace my salary, because she wasn't making very much in the music industry. And then she starts doing that, and I was watching her. And I think this goes back to a different part of me that's very different from Megan, which is that I've always had an interest in finance from the investor perspective. And so like I was always really, really interested in like trading stocks, investing in companies. I always wanted to be an angel investor. I thought that was like the coolest thing in the world. And what you realize is you're like, oh, wait, that is what this could be. Like me joining this thing, joining this private company. And I would say to anyone out there listening, this is a form of angel investing. When you see something doing really well and you say like, hey, I think I could join that thing and make an impact. And that's how I felt about NoBaked. And luckily for me, Megan let me. She invited me in and she asked me questions and she wanted help. And I think a lot of first-time founders want help. They want a co-founder. And it's funny because we didn't have a huge background in food, there were a ton of mistakes, so many mistakes. And I always say to this day, like, if you look at us, we're the most unlikely food entrepreneurs. Now you would not know that. We both really like to cook and we've gotten very into food, but like at that point in time, no, neither of us could really cook. Neither of us knew our way around a kitchen. In fact, the first time we went to make a batch of cookie dough, we didn't even know how to make commercial like grade. To do commercial baking, you have to weigh everything.
Right.
You can't measure it in cups. This is obvious to anyone who's baked. Not to 23-year-old me. It was not obvious.
Right.
And so I sat there with a 60-quart mixer, putting cups of flour into the mixer. First batch of cookie dough was terrible.
Right.
And there was no AI yet to tell us that we were stupid. So it was an interesting journey, but I think for me, it was all about seeing a product that resonated with the customer. And there was a moment at a festival where we had that happen, where she had a line for like 4 hours of people buying cookie dough from her. And it was like coming out of a cooler in these dumb paper cups. And we just, a little like sticker on the cup that said NoBaked.
You're on to something.
Yeah. And when you see something that's that silly, but it's working, it's like, oh, this is product market fit. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And that felt really good.
Awesome. I mean, you've talked about Megan a lot, which is great. And in episode 245, I had Adam Rossi on, and he and I spoke about, and he's a founder, somebody who's exited, worked with his wife, and he and I spoke about what it was like working with your spouse, because I do as well. My wife is our chief marketing officer. So can you share with us, with our listeners, what it's been like to build this business hand in hand, side by side with your wife, Megan?
Yeah. I get asked that a lot. I'm sure you do too.
Yes. How we're still married,
yes.
Is the big question, right? And still in business, both of them,
Everyone has a different way of answering it. And I think it is nuanced. I think there are some best practices that I like to share with people. One of them is the transparency that you would give a business partner. To give that to your spouse is probably extremely important. And so I think it actually can make you and your marriage stronger if you actually like hold up to that. It turns out, and I think because of that concept, co-founders break up a lot. That's something that people don't talk about very often. I've seen it actually happen in real life. It's not pretty, especially when it's a very big company. And it actually turns out that spouses that are co-founders break up less often. I think that's because of the transparency factor. I think it's really important to communicate. And so that communication for me was always like, we know everything about the finances together. We know everything about the bank accounts together. We know everybody's credit card password, you name it. We know it about each other. And that level of transparency allows you to operate as a team. The second part of that kind of plays off of it, which is like the team spirit part. We treat everything in our lives the same way that we treat NoBaked. So whether it be parenting our children, whether it be packing their lunches, whether it be doing the dishes or things I don't like to do, like doing the laundry, which I should be paying someone to do. I have a whole tirade on that that Megan and I have argued about recently. But I think that you have this like team element and this communication element that are like key. They're key to any relationship. And so many more people should realize that. I think people ask us, why are we still married? You probably as well, because they're like, why is your marriage so good? Is usually the thought in their head, like, hey, like I could not work with my spouse. That's probably a bad sign. That may be bad. Now, not for everybody. Some people, they need their space. They may be introverted, whatever it might be. For me and Megan, we give each other space and time as well inside of the business. We've given each other breaks. Megan took maternity leave for the first time with our third kid. That was like pulling teeth because she doesn't take maternity leave. Regardless of how she posts about it online, she works 24/7 and that's who she is. But giving each other breaks, allowing each other to like actually lean on each other, I think that's super important. And that's really the only advice I have.
And it's worked for you. So that's great. Clearly it's working. So do you know finances can be joyful with your partner? We created a fantastic guide for couples to start their journey surrounding their finances. Head over to Midland.us/couplesjoy to download your free copy today. Don't miss out. Start bringing more joy into your financial conversations. One of the things that you guys are really good at is, the use of social media and leveraging your brand through that social media. And I think a lot of founders and a lot of business owners, that's an area that they either lean into, stay away from because they don't understand it, or they dabble in it, right? It's like there's no in between. It's usually like one of those three pillars. What advice do you have for other entrepreneurs who are thinking about or want to use social media in order to do that to leverage their brand effectively?
I have some advice that I think is so easy to say, but so hard to do, which is that you need to stay consistent.
Right.
And the reason I say it's hard to do is I have failed at doing that so many times throughout the course of the brand, the business, my own personal brand. Where I get burnt out, I don't want to do it anymore. I think there are methods to get around that. There are methods to work through it. For me, it was typically burnout or just kind of general disgust with how social media is. I try my hardest to be active. I've tried I tried my hardest to be active on X and Threads and all of the text-based stuff. And I can't. Now what I've started doing and what I think I may keep doing is like a method is to post and ghost by like copying and pasting my LinkedIn posts to Threads and to X. And I'm trying to like kind of like hopefully push my algorithm toward like a business focused thing. But consistency is really the key. The thing that I've been able to do has been stay consistent and keep on it. And we haven't even been as consistent as we could be. And I keep telling myself, like, you can imagine where you would be at today if you had simply posted every single day or twice a day, every day for the last 8 years across all platforms.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it took us almost 5 years before we developed like a really good following. So I think you hit the nail on the head that consistency is so vitally important. I think also, I don't think you have to be everything to everyone on all the platforms. You find your platform and, stick to it and dive, go an inch wide and a mile deep there rather than trying to go in the other direction. So
that is exactly, yeah.
One of the things my mom helped me internalize was that everything happened for a reason. And it's something that I find myself saying all the time when things are happening. And sometimes in that moment or shortly thereafter, you realize why it happened. And other times, it may take years or you may never know. How has hindsight shown you that the journey makes sense for you and, Megan?
Hindsight's 2020. There are many things that you begin to see that you're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I think the interesting part about our journey is that when I started with Megan back in 2017, we had a 5-year exit plan. Immediately. We thought like we would build this franchise system, which we were actually on pace to do. Imagine that without the pandemic, we were on pace to do the 5-year plan. We actually were ahead of schedule, which was very interesting. It's very soulless and things I don't think were going very well. I think they would have blown up before the 5-year timer hit its mark for many different reasons. One, you probably shouldn't franchise a concept that's less than a year old. If anyone out there is considering buying a franchise, don't buy something that's less than 1 year old. That's crazy.
Right.
We had no history. We didn't have a lot of operational expertise. I'd say we do now. We definitely have developed like systems now, marketing systems, things that work for the brand, work for us. But like we had this weird goal and we shot at it. And when it all fell apart, it required maturity as entrepreneurs to be able to pivot, to grow the brand, to start to like navigate the new world, like post-pandemic. We switched into CPG, which won us a bunch of recognition and accolades. It turns out it doesn't make as much money as franchising, which is ironic. But the reason it makes sense in reverse to me is that we would have never matured as entrepreneurs. We would have never become the people we became today without the challenges that we actually faced. Had I succeeded in my ridiculous plan, I had a ridiculous plan. I told it to Megan. It was like a napkin plan, and it actually was working. Gave her this plan in June of 2017. I said, we're going to build the brand this summer and to continue doing what you're doing with the like festivals and stuff. Social media like was going off. It was doing really, really well. And then we're going to open the store, the first store, the individual concept, kill it. Obviously, that's step B. And then step C is we're going to franchise it. Step D is exit. For, I think at the time we were like, we're going to sell this company for $25 million. Pretty good. Like there was solid foundational math behind that too. Like we need to open this many units. They're going to do this volume, like this royalty stream, like the numbers are there. Like all we have to do is go from point A to point D and we will be fine. Had I accomplished that plan, I would be a terrible person. because I would not have had any perspective. I would be 28 years old and way too rich. Sounds stupid, but like money doesn't solve any of your problems unless you know what to do with it.
I would argue it makes more.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. It probably makes way. If you don't know what to do with it, it's probably way worse.
Right.
And I think the only way to know what to do with it is to have a respect for it, to understand like what it takes to get there. The only other thing in my life like that is having kids. We didn't necessarily plan to have kids. And then it made me such a good entrepreneur in the aftermath of that. Amazing. Like I was like the person I was when I was growing that company the first time. It's like all I did was drink and work, party, work. And then I had our daughter in March of 2020. We had our daughter, and we also had the pandemic, changing things for us, giving us adversity for the first time in our lives. And man, that adversity made us such better people. And I cannot explain to anyone. It's hard to explain. It's like I went from being the guy that slept until 11 and then like went to sleep at like 3 a.m. to a guy that like, and then worked all the time, to someone that like had a schedule and went to sleep at the right time and woke up at the right time.
Well, now if you look at it, you're back to being an employee again, because you have several bosses, which are your kids, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that definitely, it sounds like it shifted your whole perspective as a person. So there's no doubt that has to also have a shift on the business too, right?
Yeah. And it allows you to step up to the challenge. Like I really do think, and I wish more it would happen to more people. Having children is like the greatest gift in the form of adversity. It sounds ridiculous, but it is.
Oh, listen, I've gone through it. I will share with you, what I say to a lot of dads, especially newer dads like yourself. My boys now are 19 and 22. I think the one thing that a lot of people say to you is that it goes fast. Enjoy those moments, soak it in, be present. And you don't even realize how fast it goes. It goes faster than you could ever imagine. And I almost find that it becomes exponentially faster as they get older. Your perspective changes so many times along the way too, as they get older, right?
Yeah, it does. It's so weird. And when people say like, hey, it moves fast, it does move fast. Our daughter lost her first tooth last night.
There you go.
Ever. And she's 5 and she reads, and it's like, I feel like you're still a baby. You're not a baby at all. I have a baby right now. So like this, maybe that's why, but like,
you might be delirious.
Yeah, maybe I'm delirious, but this first 2.5 years of NoBaked felt really long. And then the last 5 years have felt comparatively almost the same amount of time. And maybe that's just because time is speeding up, but yeah, it's weird. It's also weird to say like, hey, we're almost 9 years into this thing. Like, I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It goes fast. Listen, I wake up every day. I'm like, we celebrate our 20th anniversary in the business. And right here and now, as we speak, we're celebrating 21. And it feels like we started this thing only a couple of years ago. So I get it. Can you share what it was like for somebody like yourself who came into this thing self-proclaimed, not really into food, not a baker, cooker, and then you're named as 30 under 30 food and drink by Forbes? What's that like?
That was great. It was very validating. I had a lot of split feelings around the 30 under 30. There's people out there that resonate with this. I know there are, because there are a lot of people like me. So you look at who I was in college and then who I was when I was 23, what we did and what we were working toward. It's not even like the part of the list that you end up on. It's the fact that you end up there.
Right.
And it's real weird. I've heard people from Cody Sanchez to Alex Hormozy to myself to my friends talk about the Forbes 30 to 30 in many different ways, mostly saying like, it's okay if you didn't make the list. You can do things after you're 30. But at the end of the day, for a lot of us, man, we're desperate to get on that dumb list. And it doesn't make any sense. But for me and Megan, we came at a time where we had accomplished a lot of really great things. The brand was doing really, really well. We had gotten very into food. So like that part of it was really cool. I loved that. The people we connected with right after we got on the list, we went to New York and had dinner with a bunch of the other people that had been on the list in previous years and were on the list that year. Cool. And so like we went to this restaurant in Brooklyn with like me, Jake Carls, some of my other friends, Sam Dada, a lot of really cool people that are on that list that year. And then that had like had us out for dinner, and I don't know. That part was cool. The part that wasn't so cool was we were so desperate to go on this dumb list. I try to give people this perspective. I try so hard. And I think people like Cody Sanchez have done a really good job of like kind of explaining this in social media, but like saying, hey, that list matters not at all. It feels good, right? It feels good to be recognized, but like it doesn't come with money. It doesn't come with anything other than like, we think that you're great. Yay. Yeah. And like, that was cool. You know what it did for me, being the person that I am? I had this conversation on a podcast last week. I was like, if you're me, every time I accomplish something, and this is so messed up, but I have a voice in my head that's like, well, that was easy. That wasn't that hard. Like you didn't accomplish much there. Like that was just, like, what are we doing here? I had that voice after I completed my Ironman. Like I have the voice after I got on the list.
Well, here's what you need to do. If you haven't read it yet, have you ever heard of Dan Sullivan's Gap and Gain?
No, but now I'm going to.
You should read The Gap and the Gain. And it talks about how we are always focused on the gain, how far we have in front of us. And, we're always so focused on that we very rarely or not enough take advantage and look backwards to seeing what gains we made, even if it's over a short period of time, and kind of reflect in that and take joy in those moments of gain. And it's pretty eye-opening. It kind of shifts a little bit of your perspective, and I think speaks to what you're talking about.
I love that. That's kind of where this led me, is like over the last year of my life, I've been trying to, in 2025, to kind of do that. Not specifically that. So I'm going to read that book. I love that.
There you go.
It's this idea that you move to like start reflecting on what you've done and actually being proud of it, as opposed to being like, okay, another like cookie in the cookie jar or something, like something that David, something.
Check box.
Yeah.
Check box.
Yeah. Check boxes.
Box.
So you're just like,
check off the box. Yeah.
Did that one. Let's move on.
Next.
And so, the list for me was like bittersweet, because I was very depressed turning 30. Like open and honestly, I was not in a good place, like mentally. And I think most of it had to do with the idea that I felt as though I had not accomplished enough. But then, you meet a lot of the other people on that list and a lot of the other people that have done things, and you're like, oh, wait, well, we're all in the same spot. It is so difficult to achieve anything of substance by the time you're 30 that it's kind of psychotic that we've done the things that we've done.
We celebrate it. Yeah. Right.
Like I should be like, wow, it's cool.
Yeah, you should be. Absolutely. Take joy and pride in that. And speaking of joy, we talk a lot about joy on our show, the Midland Money Mindset. And the last question we ask each of our guests is really surrounded by joy. And that is, what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
Yeah. So today it was the fact I went to the gym. It's a great question, because it's something that I stumbled onto in 2020 when things were hitting the fan. And what I realized, what I think more people should realize, is you can do something every single day that brings you joy.
Absolutely.
And I actually did make it a priority in 2020, and I have not stopped since then. Is the one thing I am consistent with. At least like 1 hour a day. Just do something that like you genuinely enjoy.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, if you find that identity outside of money, or you find that identity outside of something that costs to do, for me, a lot of the times it's hiking. Or it would be like going in, like in 2020, it was like sitting in the hot tub and like reading a book. It's simple, right? It's a very, very simple practice, but it's like those things.
Yeah. It does not have to be complicated. Well, Jimmy, it's been a pleasure having you on. We're going to have all of your information in the show notes, but if people want to learn more about NoBaked, learn more about you, connect with you, what's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
Yeah. So the best place to follow me is on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I think it's a great platform. You can find me at Jimmy Feeman. And then you could also follow me on Threads and X and Instagram at James Feeman, Feeman. There's no R.
Awesome.
And then you can find out about NoBaked at NoBakedCookieDough.com, or you can follow us on all the socials at NoBaked. We are everywhere. So
awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Jimmy, thank you for taking out the time today. Brought me a lot of joy having a conversation with you. Appreciate you and what Megan are doing, and enjoy the day.
Thanks, Larry.
Jimmy, thank you for joining us on the Midland Money Mindset. Your journey from corporate burnout to building NoBaked Cookie Dough into a national brand is truly inspiring. The grit, creativity, and joy you shared today reminds us that entrepreneurship is as much about a mindset as it is about business. We're grateful for your insights on scaling a franchise, using social media with purpose, and finding fulfillment along the way. Jimmy Feeman and NoBaked can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Midland Money Mindset. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's finding joy in the journey and embracing the right mindset. If you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Don't forget to follow along for more tips and inspiration. Please visit the social links below to connect with Larry or his guests. Until next time, keep smiling, keep thriving, and remember to think about, what did you do today that brought you joy?
The opinions voiced in the Midland Money Mindset Show with Lawrence Sprung are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy ensures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. Guests on the Midland Money Mindset Show are not affiliated with CWM LLC.